It's thinking. All right, I think we're live. You guys seeing it on your screens?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. What up, nerds? Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. I have got some of my wonderful friends with me here today. We're going to talk about our experience reading The Last Argument of Kings, which is book 3 in the First Law Trilogy. It was the first time for all of us, except we brought in a veteran. We brought in Johanna. She's going to talk with us today. She read it. She loves it. We're just going to have a good time talking about that third and final book of Steve Talks About Books and Stuff and Jolien read. They had a read-along for the First Law Trilogy that I got to be a part of. So we're going to have that conclusion today. But first, I'm going to have all of my friends introduce themselves and their channels. So, Steve, I'm going to let you go first. So tell everyone who you are.
Okay, I'm Steve from Steve Talks About Books and Stuff. I'm with my wife, Brandy. And I just wanted to say really quickly that I want to thank all of you for coming on this journey with me. I never imagined that I'd be here on Leslie's channel and I'd be on Jolene's channel. So it's just been a great experience. So thank all of you for coming along the journey with us.
And Johanna, if you would introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Johanna, and my channel is mostly fantasy, but like Leslie mentioned, I finished the First Law Trilogy. I guess it was a couple of months ago now, but I'm very excited to be here and discuss this with everyone since it wasn't too long ago since I finished. Yeah, and that's about it.
Awesome. And Stacey, introduce yourself and your new channel, please, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacey from Stacey's All Booked. As Leslie just say, I have a new channel that I started a couple weeks ago. And it all started, honestly, with reading these books and joining these lovely people in this read-along. And I'm really truly blessed to have such wonderful, supportive friends. Please check out my channel if you get a chance, but I am so excited to talk about this book today.
I have loved what you've put up so far. You have been cracking me up with your content. So yeah. I think you're off to a fantastic start. And Jolien, if you would introduce yourself, please, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jolien. I also have a channel, Jolien Reads. And I usually read fantasy books. I try to read a little bit more sci-fi lately, but fantasy is still the thing that I love most. So I'm very excited to talk about this series as well.
Yeah, I have to agree. I love reading from all genres, but fantasy is definitely my favorite. All right, guys. Before we talk about the trilogy as a whole and what we thought of the whole story arc, Stacey, what is your thoughts on The Last Argument of Kings, the final book? What did you think about it?
It wasn't my favorite of the trilogy, but it was still very good. And I'm sure you know why it wasn't my favorite.
Well, I do. I agree to an extent.
But it was very surprising. You know, Joe really got me. He got me good.
I mean, yeah, he was a trickster. He got me at the end so many times, and I thought there's nothing else. This is it, and then something else would happen.
Yeah.
Jolien, what did you think about that third one?
I think I might have similar feelings. For the first half of the book, I was thinking this is going to be my favorite of the entire trilogy. And then the last part, I wasn't so sure. I'm still glad about how most character arcs developed and ended, but there were some that I wasn't completely in love with. So it's definitely not my favorite of the trilogy, but I think it was still a good book.
Yeah, I think Joe Abercrombie, I think he wrote that ending to not satisfy everything about it that we wanted it to. Because I still maintain he wrote this just poking fun at all of the different fantasy tropes that we've been reading forever. I think he did that on purpose. Steve, what do you think?
I agree. I think he did that on purpose, and it was probably my favorite book of the trilogy. It edged out The Blade itself just a little bit, just because
really
the way things wrapped up. I'm not crazy about the way things ended, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. What about you?
It was my favorite. This was my favorite one. I liked it from the beginning to the end. I love how it ended. I wanted more Pharaoh. I'm sad we didn't get a ton of Pharaoh in this book. She's like the best character, but I loved it. The blade itself was my least favorite, and it almost made me not want to keep reading it. But I'm glad I hung in there because I love this one.
Oh my goodness. Johanna, do you remember which one was your favorite of the three?
Yes, I think it is going to go to Last Argument of Kings. And it's interesting because I, like you, Brandy, I wasn't totally sure how I felt about the blade itself. It kind of meandered for me a bit, and I honestly, I don't know that I would have even continued with the series had I not heard so many praises for the whole trilogy and for the standalones that follow. So I decided to continue on, and then I fell in love in Before They're Hanged. And then I was really shocked how much I loved Last Argument of Kings. When I read Before They Are Hanged, I decided that I was in it for the characters. I was just happy to be along the road alongside with the characters. I didn't really care about the plot. But then with Last Argument of Kings, the thing that I loved about it was the plot was so good to me, and the way it wrapped up, I actually really loved it. And for me, it actually made me appreciate the blade itself a whole lot more after finishing. So that's where I stand with that. It was still a hard decision though, because I think that the second book, Before They Are Hanged, had the best combination of characters.
Yeah, I still think the blade itself was my favorite because I was in love with page 1, and I loved the characters, and I laughed so much. And then in the second one, the story started building, and the third one was just a great combination of the two. I was laughing again at all of the antics and things that were happening, and then the plot was just, all the plot lines were just exploding. Things were happening I had been looking forward to the whole series long. It almost edged out to be my favorite, but I still think I'm feeling the blade itself as my favorite. All right, gang. So I want to talk about the entire arc, the whole trilogy. What did you guys think of the story from the first book to the end? Go ahead, Steve.
It didn't really feel like, it almost felt like the beginning of a series and not a trilogy. There wasn't really a beginning and end. It seems like it still continues past this point. It's like open-ended, I thought.
Yeah, I've not read any of the standalones. I don't know anything about them, but I am preparing next month to get into those because I can't stop. I fell in love with this story. I fell in love with this world, the characters. So I do think it was left open-ended. I don't know if that was just to aggravate the stuffing out of me, because I think Joe really just had a good time doing that with us. But I thought it was a great arc over the 3 books. Stacey, what did you think? Oh, I'm sorry, Brandon.
No, it's okay. Does anyone know, does it continue, or do the next stories build off these ones?
I've gotten the impression, I think Klaus can answer for us, the Contradictorian can answer this for us maybe in the comment section.
Tell us.
But I've gathered from comments I've received in my video for Last Argument that we do see some continuing threads of characters from this trilogy in the standalones. That's the impression I've received.
I hope it's Pharaoh.
Me too.
I need more, and I'm scared of her now. Like what she did with the seed, and what she seems like. What do you guys think happened to her? Do you think she's got magic now, or touched by the other side? What do you guys think happened to her?
I can't really say for sure what happened to her, but I can say that was probably my favorite part of The Last Argument of Kings. That whole scene, because it really changed my view of who Baez was, and Pharaoh, and the
dirty old man. I felt so betrayed.
Yes.
But, it's my fault. Abercrombie put glimpses of Baez's true nature all throughout the books.
Oh, I know.
But then I had hope.
I
I had hope for just a minute there when you found out that his apprentice,
Quai.
was actually an eater. And I was like, okay, so all the signs that we saw where Quai was kind of suspicious of him was really just him projecting, right? So I was like, so Baez could still be a good guy. No. No.
Yeah, and Logan, guys, what are your final thoughts on him at the end? Do you still like him? Do you think he? I mean,
I like him as a character, but he's bad. And what I liked was also his arc doesn't really change. He's a bad guy from the start, but we don't know it.
Yeah.
So it's just our perception that changes because we get to know more about him and what he did in the past. But he's just a bad guy all along. It's especially when you hear Betet say that he was actually the reason why everything turned bloody in the north. Like, wow.
Logan made him king. Mm-hmm. Logan would not stop. And I just, when he was fighting the Feared, and it came to the point where it said Logan laughed and the Bloody Nine laughed with him, I had chills. I was just, I loved it, but I wanted him to be good. I wanted Logan to die in a blaze of glory, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I mean, he might have, with the way it ended.
Do you guys think that Logan and the Bloody Nine are two separate people? I feel like there's a lot of discussion about that, about whether it's like a split personality or whether they're the same person. I'm curious what you all think.
I can't decide. It seemed whenever he would be in a battle and he tasted blood, it brought the other personality out. But I also wondered, since Logan could talk with spirits, if maybe he had a spirit in him, and that was the Bloody Nine.
That's where I was leaning toward. Yeah.
So
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because I just wondered about that. The whole 3 books, Logan was the one that could commune with the spirits, and Baez had to know about Logan and the Bloody Nine. Mm-hmm. And I just have to wonder if, since the spirits are leaving the world because magic is leaving the world, if a spirit took refuge in Logan so it would not eke out of the world. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he survived, but I hope he's dead.
I think he's dead.
Yeah, that'd be a good ending.
But didn't you? I felt like it was a Sopranos ending because it even says like fade to black, or everything was black.
Yeah.
So you just, my opinion is that he's dead. I hope.
Oh.
It's a good ending if he's dead.
Over all 3 books, Jolien, who was your favorite character arc?
Oh, Giselle.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I really like him.
What an idiot, though. He just, it was just snowballing the whole time for him. And do you feel bad that he fell for Baez, pretending he was the bastard of the king? And then it really wasn't. Baez was like, no, man, I had like 20 of y'all ready to go.
Yeah, and then his wife finally pays attention to him in the end, and he thinks, oh, she might really like me. He just falls for everything.
I love that storyline so much. I loved Giselle's storyline in Last Argument. That was so funny. That whole bedroom is a battlefield scene. Just, I could not stop laughing through that whole chapter.
The end where Glocta talks to Therese, and then she's all like, okay, I'm ready to be your wife now. And he's all excited, thinking,
no idea.
I feel so bad.
She's coming around.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love your never-ending optimism, but bro, did nobody love West?
Oh,
Yes,
I
I did.
did. I loved West, even though he was kind of messed up. I mean, they were all messed up, so
Yeah.
it's so conflicting to like care about these characters because
I
they're
know.
awful, but they're still good. There's just he really. I mean, Abercrombie. He has to be one of my favorite authors now
Yeah.
because he
Oh,
makes me
mine too.
so morally conflicted.
And you're laughing and then you feel bad because you're not sure if you should be happy about what's happening. I mean, I love the fact that Glockta and Artie ended up together.
Yeah,
I
do
wanted them
too.
together the whole time.
Yes.
So this is not a spoiler, but I bought the first book in the new trilogy,
Mhm.
and I think that one is about Artie and Glockta's daughter.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, I think I've
that-
heard
You
that.
mean Giselle and Artie's daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, what a mess. That
Oh
was
my god.
This is the next one, right, Stacey?
No, that's a
Oh, it's not?
standalone.
Oh, okay.
So the next trilogy, I think, is called A Trouble with Peace.
Yeah, but I heard
okay.
to read the standalones before going into the new
Yeah.
trilogy.
Oh, okay.
That one,
Right.
Steve, is about Duke Orso and a woman who needs revenge from him, and it's good. And I actually read that before I read the first law, and I wish I hadn't because I think I would enjoy it more. I'm going to read it again because there's a lot in that world that you don't get because you didn't read the first books that really kind of set up the world for you.
Yeah.
But it's excellent.
Brandy, there was a ton of reveals in this book. What was your favorite reveal?
My favorite reveal was probably Kwai. The Kwai thing where he wasn't Kwai the whole time, and the whole time he's just been like sickly, and then we find out why, and
Yeah.
that was a really cool reveal.
That was insane.
Stacey, what was yours?
Geez. You know what? So I kept going back and forth about, I had to actually go back in the book and read some other things when I found out about Maruvia, I think his name was.
Yeah, Marovia.
When it turned out because when there was one point where Giselle notices that he has two different color eyes. And I was like,
Yes.
wait, didn't that Tanner guy have two different color eyes?
Yeah.
And then I just thought, oh, he must be related. And when I found out, I had to go back and see if there were any, clues that I just didn't catch. And so that I think was my favorite because I was like, what? Wait, what? So I have to go back and look.
Jolien, what was yours?
Well, I actually don't know the name of the character anymore, but the prisoner that West found.
Oh, Pike.
Yes, Pike.
Then,
Pike.
Yes.
That was my favorite. Salem Ruse. Oh,
Yeah. I really
So
enjoyed
glad.
that. And then at the end that he's just together with Glockta and that he doesn't mind working with him. I actually enjoyed that a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah. I like how it
Steve?
came full circle
I'm
there.
sorry. Yeah, that was. I love when something ties in like that. That just it's like just a common thread that you can just pull and make the whole garment just bunch up. It's like fantastic.
I think that I agree about the Kwai reveal. That really got me. But the other one that really got me was when Krummick knew that Logan had killed his son.
Oh,
And
yeah.
just the way he brought that up, he whispered it like, I didn't kill the boy. It creeped me out.
Yeah, that guy
Wow.
made me nervous and all worse than shivers. Krummicky Vale made me very
Yes, he was so creepy.
Mhm.
He was so creepy. And he was constantly telling his children about, oh, the Bloody Nine is the worst.
nervous. His kids and the way he kept calling his daughter, his three sons, and his daughter was like, "Oi,
Yeah.
I'm a girl."
I loved her. I wanted to see more of with her. She just had such a great attitude.
Yeah.
Oh man, they had me. I was just laughing the whole time with the Northmen. Steve, was there a big reveal that was your favorite?
It was a reveal that I hated at the time. I guess it's a reveal that the seed wasn't there after this long journey. There was no seed, and at the time it kind of irritated me. But now,
That
after
really
I finished
happened
the trilogy, it's funny now. But at the time, I was like, no.
It made sense.
Yeah, it makes sense now. At the time, I didn't like it, but now it's probably my favorite reveal.
Yeah, and I mean, so the group of characters that were my favorite in the very beginning were the Northmen. I loved Logan's named Northmen. And the whole trilogy, I was looking forward to when they all were reunited. Boy, was I disappointed in what happened when they did. Because, guys, Logan, or the Bloody Nine, I mean, he just was wiping them out. I was not expecting that. Oh,
Not
I was
only
so
was I not
disappointed.
expecting it, but it made me not like Logan anymore.
See, that last book changed how I felt about a lot of characters, and Logan was one of them.
Yeah.
It made me face who he, and I think that was kind of what it was supposed to do. Like, Logan finally faced the fact I want to be a better man. I want to change, and then he kind of realized there's no changing for me. I am who I am. I've got nothing left to do but what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Did you guys find that whole say what you will about the Bloody Nine thing was way overdone? Like, it just
oh,
it was funny a little bit here and there, but it was like over and over,
you-
right? I mean,
Yeah, there were some
Brandy.
things that were they were fun
Brandy.
at first, but
Brandy, you have to be realistic about these things. I say that all the time. Every opportunity I can, I'm like, you got to be realistic about these things.
Still alive, still alive.
yeah. Well, I like that one, but the whole say what you will, say what you will.
I love how he uses fool as an adjective. He's like,
Yep.
you've got some fool notion, or you got some fool idea. I don't know why that tickled me every time I read fool as an adjective in the books.
Oh, man. So I know that this trilogy, to me, seemed to be really focused on the characters. But what did you guys think as far as world building? Do we have any world builders out there what were your thoughts? Did you think it was expanded enough, or was it too tiny? Did you get a feel for visually what Adua and the surrounding areas look like?
I did. I think it was really good world building in these, especially like even when Glocka was, where was he in was it Morovia, or was that a guy?
That's a guy, yeah.
Sorry. But when they sent in the second book, when they sent Glocka,
Dagaska?
yeah, and he really described all these different areas well, like where Bethod was when he was getting ready to fight, when Logan was getting ready to fight the Beard. Like, I felt like that was all really clear, what everything, the setting and everything was like.
Yeah, I mean, like what this comment that the Fantasy Network wrote here, the world building throughout the 9 books is amazing. In the first trilogy, it feels subtle but quality to me. I agree with the subtle but quality, because I felt like world building was there, but it wasn't like there wasn't too much exposition.
Robert Jordan.
Yeah, I was fine with that though.
Me too. It was enough that I could form a picture in my mind of it.
yeah.
Although, like Robert Jordan, there were some things that were very repetitive in these.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the hair twirling, it was the teeth sucking.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
Every single character had to suck their teeth.
Or their lack of teeth.
Or their gums.
Yeah.
Though, I listened to a lot of the audiobooks with this series because Stephen Pacey did such an amazing job, and I just got so accustomed to hearing that, especially with poor Glocta, with sucking his gums because he didn't have any teeth. And speaking of Glocta, guys, I think some of the biggest, most surprising reveals happened in his plot lines. Like, Baez, that old geezer, was behind Valentin Balk Bank.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you believe that one guy has been pulling the strings, the open council, the closed council, the money?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
like I said, he was playing 4D chess and I was playing Crazy Eights.
Can you imagine? And, we first meet this guy. He's looking like a blacksmith way out on the outskirts of the forest when Logan first meets him. And and he's just running all this stuff. I did not expect him to put Glocta as high up as he did, but it makes sense. I think he's going to be able to definitely keep everybody else in check, but I feel sorry for Glocta because he just keeps finding himself in one hard place after another. He's not getting to make any of his own choices. None.
It's hard to have too much sympathy for him though, because he's not exactly like we mentioned earlier. None of them are perfect, but you still like the characters, but you don't have too much sympathy for him after things he does.
I don't know. I kind of felt I felt as though Glocta did try a lot of times. I mean, there were many instances where he did offer mercy to certain characters, and then they ended up turning against him.
Yes, absolutely. That happened on more than one occasion.
Mm-hmm.
But just like with Eider, he ended up being able to make use of her in the end, which I thought was very clever.
Yeah. Yeah, he was able to use his skill in the end so that he didn't necessarily get totally fooled at when they betrayed him.
Well, I hope if he and Giselle are in the future standalones, I hope, because Giselle wants to use the crown to do good. He wanted to build the hospital, and Glocta had to remind him, Baez is running the show, and he doesn't want that. But maybe you and I can figure a way how to somehow scrounge up the money and start small. So I'm hoping it'll all be on Glocta because Giselle is an idiot. He doesn't have the brain power to outsmart Baez. Glocta might, and maybe the two of them together can somehow figure a way to get themselves loose of Baez. Where could this possibly go?
I know.
The standalones.
Yeah, I have to wonder that as well. I love that conversation, by the way, that you're talking about, Leslie, because it's like Glocta's basically saying to Giselle, yeah, we have to keep our man Baez happy, so we're kind of, but he doesn't have to know everything. And I appreciated that, and I'm actually impressed that Giselle still felt like he wanted to do some good. Mm-hmm. I know everybody makes fun of Giselle, and he is very selfish, but at the end of the day, he did want to do some good. He did want to help the homeless, and Glocta wasn't totally against that idea. And I don't know. I guess I still see good. I know I did a whole video about this, but I actually did see some good out of these characters in the end. Even Logan, as horrible his ending was like the beginning. I don't know. That is obviously questionable about his character, but even at towards the very end, when he's speaking to Baez and he says, I might not be able to become a better man, but I can at least not be a worse. I can at least do that much. I thought that was something that's saying something. Like maybe he can't be this whole new transformed person, and maybe he doesn't have that agency thanks to the spirit or whatever it is that the Bloody Nine is inside him, or the mental health aspect that somebody else mentioned earlier. But he can start somewhere. He could do something, which is maybe not be worse. I don't know.
You have to start somewhere. Change has to have an event, a catalyst, and I wanted it for him so bad.
Yeah,
so bad. And did anybody even expect Black Dow to do what he did? I didn't.
No, that was a complete surprise to me. And I was also listening to the audiobook, so I didn't have any idea that this was the end of the book. So I was listening and I was really into the story, and then at the end it was like, this is the end of the audiobook. So I had to rewind to
Me too.
Sure
I did that too.
Really the ending. So yeah, I was really shocked.
What do you think about that? The circular ending? That the ending is the beginning and the beginning is the ending, that whole thing. Like the last chapter is called the beginning, and then the first chapter in the first book is called the ending, or something like that.
I never noticed that.
What do you think he's trying to say about that?
We all come full circle.
I mean, there's so many different interpretations of that. By the way, I just want to say in the comments, I'm laughing about Baez equals Gandalf if he took the One Ring. I'm reading I'm rereading the Lord of the Rings right now, so I love that. And then Baez is Gandalf if you, yeah.
It's funny. That's a good comment because I honestly was talking to somebody when I was reading the first book, The Blade Itself, and it's like, oh man, this guy really reminds me of Gandalf, but he's kind of chill, like a hippie version of Gandalf when you first meet him. Oh boy, was I wrong.
Yeah. Well, because we're so used to trusting the mentors, the mentor trope.
Yeah, and I fell for it. Even though there were clues to his true personality, I fell for it.
I think Abercrombie knows that we want to love our mentors. We want to have that father figure we can trust kind of character. So you really messed with us.
I should have learned by the second, the first book, really. I should have learned, don't trust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though I loved the Northmen, the named men were the named men because they stacked bodies high. They killed people.
I still love
that. Yeah, I did too. I still felt sorry for him when his little girlfriend got smoked in the battle in the second book.
Yeah.
I like this comment here, by the way. What if the fall in the beginning triggered this separate personality?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
But he was the Bloody Nine before that fall. He had the...
Yeah. Well, but the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. I just have to wonder. So, Stacey, you mentioned you've read the first book in the new trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody else?
Bought it.
Oh, you bought it.
Has anybody bought it after the first book in this trilogy, and I was reading the inside flap, and I was like, "Oh crap!"
And so, have any of us read any of Joe's other works?
No. I read Best Served Cold, the standalone.
Okay. Oh, you read Best Served Cold? Okay.
Yes, I've read that.
Compare Best Served Cold with the first Law trilogy. Like, is it on par? Are we going to be excited?
I think it's better.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you aren't following as many characters. It's mainly, I don't think it's first person. I could be wrong. But you are following one main character through most of the book. But she's hilarious. Her motivations are, so her scheming is probably some of the best scheming I've seen in a book. Because she's trying to work her way into getting her revenge, and it's just great. It's got a lot more of the big scope battles like you see in these books, but it's also very micro, and I liked it a lot.
I'm excited.
Yeah. That's a new character, or it's somebody that we already know?
It's not a character that we already know, but there are some characters from this trilogy that show up. None of the main characters in this trilogy show up, though. Like, I think Duke Orso is in it, and I think Casca, is that his name, Casca, the mercenary? I think he makes
that guy's a trip.
He's such an opportunist.
Oh, man. But he's just, he's consistent.
Yeah.
You have to give him that.
No, he is
He
consistent.
tells you up front that
what you see is what you get with him. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing that each one of Joe Abercrombie's books gets better and better and better. And I'm inclined to believe that because I felt that way with this trilogy. So I'm excited to continue. But I can understand why people wouldn't like this trilogy at the same time.
Yeah.
I kind of mentioned this before in another video, but I think if you're expecting big character arcs, like characters to have huge transformations and to be different by the end of the trilogy as the beginning, a lot of people want that. Just like the Mistborn trilogy, you're not going to get that. If you want people to do good things and be rewarded for it, like you see in other fantasy worlds, you're not going to get that in this world. It's a grimdark world for that reason, I think.
Yeah, and nobody ended up with the characters and the people they ended up with would not have been what they would have chosen. Well, except for Glocka. But Giselle would have rather been with Artie, who Artie didn't even seem to really like him much. I mean, she treated him rather poorly. And it's just nothing ended up the way I would think the characters would want it to, and maybe not the reader. But I just enjoyed it. It was so different. You know, the good guy didn't end up with the girl. There was no hero. Nobody saved the day. The dragon was not slain. The whole Adua got pretty much just leveled. And it's just, there was not a happy ending. There wasn't much of an ending, really.
Yeah.
So I can see where that would definitely hack off some folks.
Yeah, I really don't think this is. I mean, what are your thoughts? I would love to hear what you all think, but this is not a trilogy, even though it's easy to read and get into, and the characters are fantastic. And I did love the subtle world building, so it has that going for it. It's not necessarily, I think, a trilogy that I would recommend to somebody new to the genre, to fantasy.
No.
I mean, new to grimdark, yeah, maybe, but not new to fantasy. Because
Yeah.
I don't think you could appreciate the way that he subverts those tropes if you're new to fantasy.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah, I had the same feeling.
And that's something that we talked about last time when we were discussing the second book, is how often Joe Abercrombie flips those tropes on their heads. And we all enjoyed it because we've read several fantasies where those are, you know, standard. And it's like, what just happened there? So I totally agree, Johanna, that if you hadn't at least read some fantasy with those standard tropes, it would lose its some of the things that make these books great is just how he's almost making fun of those tropes in many cases, and so you miss that subtle humor. Because I have to say that some of it was hilarious.
Yes,
I agree.
That was my enjoyment in the first one. That sucked me in because at first I wasn't sure. But I was like, "Is this?" And I read a little bit more, and I'm like, and it just kept piling up. I'm like, I really think this guy's making fun of us little fantasy trope lovers.
He totally is. He knows his audience so well. And it's amazing, too, that this is his first trilogy. Like, The Blade itself was his first book. That blows my mind. That's amazing.
I wish I could do that. I would love, if it was just one book, if I could just write one book with that creativity and just that much, just people just like, and I don't even know, somebody, Steve, what does grimdark mean to you?
Yes.
And do you feel the First Law trilogy fit into that category?
Yeah, I think it did. I haven't read too many grimdark books, but I think it was probably in the middle of where most people would think is too far, like too dark. I don't think it was too far on the edge, but it was. I don't think it was too much for the casual fantasy reader to be offended. You know, to have it be a little bit too violent or too much. There was enough to where it was satisfy us grimdark fans, but not too much to run someone away.
This was my first experience with grimdark, so I was kind of like, this is the grimdark I've been hearing about. Like, it just felt like fantasy to me. Like,
yeah,
it was some darkness, but I didn't really feel. I was nervous. He was like, you gotta read some grimdark, and
But the romance books, Jolien.
I don't know, but I've read some pretty crazy stuff after, so okay, it is mild.
I never felt that it was grimdark. I think I was so caught up in just the character and the development of the characters and there were a lot of characters. I mean, guys, we had a lot of characters, but I think he did an excellent job developing them, but not so over much that I got tired of it. I never got tired of any of the characters, but I also didn't get mad when he would switch perspectives, because sometimes that will happen. Like Song of Ice and Fire, I would get mad when he would change a character because I was loving what I was reading and maybe not as invested in the next character's storyline as much. But with the First Law, I loved now right away I did not like West.
Oh,
Dang if he didn't end up being my favorite by the end.
I loved West. Yeah, I don't know if I cared for him at first, though. That's a good point.
I'm so mad that he died. Why would you take him away from us?
Did he die, though? That's the question.
Well,
Like,
that's true. I mean,
He's got sick.
It's implied.
I thought he
Yeah.
died, and I said he died in my video, and then
Yeah.
Joe from Average Joe Reed said, I didn't know he died, and then I had to go back and reread. I'm like, well, I guess it didn't
I mean,
explicitly say he died.
it didn't, but everybody else. with
It
that
sounded
disease.
like pretty close, like he died.
He was
It
showing
did
all the
though.
signs of what that disease was doing to the people that were dying, so I kind of figured he was going to die.
Yeah.
And I really felt for Glocta in that moment when he met with West and just saw the husk of the man that he had become, and just that he could, in that moment, I don't think West was aware of too much of what was going on around him to realize what he was saying to Glocta, because he's talking to Glocta. It's like he forgot that Glocta has been deformed. He's in constant pain. He will never be the same. He's 35 and is described looking like and moving like he's 90. And it's just that scene and that moment and just the feelings that were brought up, because that was Glocta's one friend I felt. And that scene just really touched me. Just the descriptions and how it was described, and I mean, I just love Glocta anyway. But
Yeah, that's such a that's so true. It's so many well-written scenes. I mean, I think that's why I loved The Last Argument of Kings so much, and it surprised me. It was just, I felt like scene after scene after scene, I was so invested in every moment that happened. And like you said, Leslie, it just, every point of view was so interesting. I wanted to know what was going on with the Northmen. I wanted to know what was going on over here with Baez and Jazal. I wanted to know what was going on with West. I wanted to know, all these different character perspectives. It was just absolutely fascinating.
well, that sparks a question. Let's talk favorite scene. Jolien, do you have a favorite scene?
I have to think about that one. But
Me
I think
too.
that a lot of people don't agree. But I actually liked when Logan was fighting the Fearless. And when you had that scene with the Dogman and the other one going to kill the witch, I really liked how that was combined together. I really enjoyed that one. Because I couldn't see how Logan was going to pull it off. And I thought, he might as well die. It would be something that Joe Abercrombie could do. Just let him be killed off by the Fearless.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I thought, the spirit said, I won't see you again. So I'm like, okay, he's gonna go fight this Fearless, and he's gonna die.
Yeah.
And
I was confused by that scene, by the way.
well,
go
so
ahead.
here's what I was thinking about that. The spirit was talking to Logan about not seeing Logan again. So what I thought is the Bloody Nine would be brought out in the fight with the Fearless and would just take over. Logan would be gone permanently, and he would just be the Bloody Nine, killing everybody, just laying waste. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I think what confused me about that scene with Logan fighting the Fearless, I think that was it. I think that was the scene where West was at the circle when they created that circle.
Yeah.
I was confused about the part where West, didn't he like unhook the shield, or he did something, but then it didn't seem to matter in the end, and I was kind of confused why. Did you catch anything with that? Anybody?
I think it was his way of preparing to help if he needed to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered because I thought, is that going to lead to something? And then it didn't. And I wondered what the whole point of that was.
But I don't know if I understood it correctly, but I think that he was trying to do something around his ankle, that he opened up something there. And I thought it's going to be like Achilles, where he damages his heel, and that's why he died. But then it didn't happen. So I had all of these.
That's probably just Joe Abercrombie throwing in some red herrings to trip us up.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, they're gonna think I'm about to do something here, and then just doesn't.
Okay, that probably was what it was. Because I was confused. I'm like, why did that happen? Did that happen? What was the point? Okay. So it was just
That's one of the things about him is those little subtle things that he puts in there that kind of helps with that character building. It gives you an insight into West. Like, he knew that he wasn't supposed to help, that this was a fight to the death between those two. And I saw it as him saying, look, I'm not going to watch Logan die. I'm going to step in. I'm going to be what was his name? The Furious?
Furious?
Yeah.
His name was
name,
Furious, which I love.
Oh, yes.
But he even felt that way after watching Logan. When Logan became the Bloody Nine and killed one of the shield holders, it's just like, wow. Would you still support and stand there and hold a shield for a man who would just kill with impunity like that? No control. I would run for the hills. I'd be gone.
I don't know if that's my favorite scene, Jolien, but I did really like it, especially when Dogman and the others got to the witch and she was talking to them, and they were, obviously under a spell. And then was it Black Dow that chopped her up and was like, that bitch talks too much?
Yeah.
Like, yes.
I thought it was too easy, though. I mean, she was distracted. She was probably casting spells and stuff, but I thought it was a little too easy.
I loved it. That's why I think he did that on purpose, though.
Probably.
That was one of the best lines.
Your hope was something was going to happen, right? That somehow they're going to get saved, but you weren't sure how because it would be too easy. And then that happens, and you're like, and then with that line, oh my God, it was so perfect.
I was rolling. Steve, Brandy, did y'all have a favorite scene?
My favorite, and it's really more of like the best line in the book for me, was when Pharaoh and Giselle came face to face again after a while, and he's now king, and he's like, hello, Pharaoh, whatever, and she goes, your fucking majesty. And I heard that part on the audiobook. Yeah, it was hilarious. I just laughed so hard. She's my favorite.
I loved her. I think my favorite scene with her is when she follows Baez and Yulwei into the Maker's tower house, and when she notices the seed. She doesn't know that is, she just sees that thing up in the ceiling where the things are. I think that is one of my favorite, but it continues through how it describes when Baez has the circle built and he's fighting off the 100 words. I loved that whole bit, start to finish. I thought was just described so well, and how the different characters are just all over the city and they're slowly coming in towards each other, and how Abercrombie the last line from a character in one point of view would be the first line of the character in the next point of view. I thought that was so well done.
That was good.
Yes.
His transitions are so good. And that's such a good point, the way that he built that up at the end. I love that about his writing style, because sometimes when I'm reading a book and I'm switching perspectives, sometimes it's a little jarring for my mind to get oriented in the new perspective that I'm reading in. And I never felt that way once in this trilogy. He is so good about just engaging me right away into the new perspective. And that was definitely a device I noticed he used too.
Well, I think what he was really good at is you wouldn't be in the depths of a battle, and then he would switch over to somebody who's in a countryside where the battle hasn't made it yet. He kept you on an even keel. And so, he just kept your heart rate going, just kept it going, doing some good cardio training.
That's a good point. So if you were in a tense situation, but you switched to another tense situation, that kind of time. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Because, if you're tense and then you're like, okay, I can relax. And then all of a sudden bring it back, Black Dow's battle axe falls on, wait, what?
Yeah.
But man, nothing about the ending of this trilogy was what I expected. None of it. Not one lick.
Well, I had been warned by so many people that I would hate the ending. And I could see why, people were angry about that ending, but I still think it was brilliant in its own way. I
I
don't
thought
know.
it was wonderful. I'm usually one of those. I like to have an ending on my story. I don't like it being left open. But there was with this trilogy, it was so different than anything I've ever read in fantasy that I feel that the ending matched the rest of how the structure was of the series as a whole, and so it fit.
Yeah.
So to me, it felt like it fit well.
Jolien,
All right.
in our discussion thread, Jolien, you mentioned I think one of your first reactions when you finished the last book was you have thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think about the ending?
I really didn't like it. That in general, for me, a trilogy needs to have an ending. And when I said that I didn't like the ending to some other people, a lot of them were explaining like, yeah, but the hidden meaning is that it's a circle and the characters didn't really change and that's why they end up the same. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I like. It's really just the last chapter. A trilogy needs to have an ending. And I don't care if he dies or if he lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be a happy ending, but it needs to end.
Well,
and yeah, I don't like that.
So I'm kind of like you in that regard. If the author gives me enough information, though, where I can have fun imagining, okay, Logan jumped out that window. Imagine he died, and then go from there. Or imagine he lives, but maybe the Bloody Nine lives and Logan doesn't, or vice versa. Like if I have enough information where I can have fun creating my own endings, I'm good. But if I don't get enough explanation where I can't come up with anything for my imagination to go forward with it, that really pisses me off.
I'm with you on that, Leslie. Yeah.
All right. So we're coming close on the hour, but before we go, I want to hear from you guys what your overall rating for the trilogy was, and does it hold any reread capability for you? Stacey, we'll let you go first.
So I rated the first books 5 stars and the last one 4. So I can't give the whole trilogy 5 stars. So I'll say 4 stars.
And do you think you'll reread it in the future?
I want to, because I think there's some things I might have missed in the third book. A lot was happening and all happening really fast. And unfortunately, I waited too long to start the book in the month, so I had to finish it quickly to come here today. And so I probably will reread, if not the whole trilogy, maybe the last book.
Gotcha. Steve and Brandy, how about y'all?
I give the whole series a solid 4 stars. I probably won't read it again though. I'm a romance reader, so it was a stretch for me. But I really did enjoy the series. It's just not on my list of anything I would probably read again. So.
Well, we're just happy you read it with us.
I had a good time though. It was so fun.
Yeah, I think I really liked the Blade itself. I'm not crazy about Before They Are Hanged, but I thought the last book was pretty good. I think I'd give it a 4, and I wouldn't mind rereading it with people who haven't read it, maybe in a year or two. That might be fun to see their reactions and kind of for myself just read it again. But I think I'd read it again eventually.
You should listen to the audiobook.
And I feel like I missed
the
it.
audiobook is so good. I cannot imagine not having the audiobook either, with the physical book too, or it by itself. Johanna, what about you?
Oh, you know what? If it weren't for the audiobook, this would definitely be a lower rating for me.
Yes.
That audiobook took it to a whole new level. I think you could still love this trilogy without the audiobooks, but that audiobook is so good. So yeah, for that reason alone, I would definitely give it 5 stars. I think, I don't know if it's the highest 5 stars. It's kind of hard with rating systems in general, but I think I would reread this someday. I want to hold out from saying it's like the best ever though, because I keep hearing these books get better and better. So I kind of want to leave some room for that. So maybe I'll just say like 4.8 or something up high towards 5. Yeah. What do you think, Leslie?
It was definitely a 5-star read for me. I enjoyed every book. I enjoyed the different uniqueness of the whole story as a whole, I will 100% reread this series. 100%. Probably more than once. I just absolutely loved it. I can't wait to dig into the standalones next month.
Yeah.
I think it's just Joe Abercrombie is refreshing. I've been reading fantasy for 20, 25, 30 years. This was completely unlike anything I've read. So it just fired me up. So I'm all of the stars. I would reread it starting next month if I could. Jolien, what do you think?
Well, I normally don't give star ratings, so maybe this is, well, it feels like it's too low, but I think 3.5 maybe for the entire series, because there's a lot that I loved, but there are also just some things that aren't my thing in general. That's not a fault of Abercrombie. That's just, for example, the Seed. I felt that there were some radioactive vibes there, and I don't like my fantasy to have tie-ins with our world, like Portal Fantasy or anything like that. I don't like it. So that was something that for me was a negative, but I can understand that a lot of people really do like it. Yeah. On the other hand, I think that I would reread the trilogy as a whole, because so many things happened that you weren't expecting from the first book, that I think if you read it again with that knowledge, it's a whole different experience.
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
1000%. I know I missed stuff.
I know I did too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to rereading it and finding those Easter eggs. But there's no way I'm going to stop and reread it before I finish all of his other works.
Exactly.
I have to know what is going to come next. I am so excited. My friend Penny, she was, I bet she's still in the chat. She read this with me as well, and then she sent me the heroes, and I've got the other two coming. So she and I are going to be reading the heroes and Best Served Cold next month.
Oh, cool.
So excited.
Oh, wow. I'll be right behind you. I think I'm going to be reading Best Served Cold in June, but I'm so excited to continue. And now this discussion has made me even more excited.
Oh, man. That's how these book talks work.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have any final thoughts they want to get out?
I just want to thank all of you again. Just want to thank all of you again for reading it with me, and it's been a blast.
Oh man, I'm so excited that you and Jolien did this read along, and I got to be a part of it. I've had this trilogy on my TBR forever, and I just kept putting it off because I knew nothing about Joe Abercrombie really. I just knew a lot of my friends loved him and recommended him. And then when I just happened to see your video that day, and I thought, So I thank you guys for putting on the readathon and letting me be a part of it and having live shows so we could talk about it and gush over it. So guys, I thank you all for coming on my channel today and being a part of it, and especially our veteran Johanna.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
And guys out in the chat, thank you all so much for being here today and listening to us talk about the First Law Trilogy. I hope we've sparked some folks that are going to go reread it. If you need people to talk to about it, we're here for you. But guys, that is going to do it for us today. Thank you for coming by and spending time with us, and we will catch you guys coming up soon. Y'all take care.